Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we're going to preview the San Francisco 49ers Week 4 matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is set up to be maybe San Francisco's toughest test yet this season. The Niners are looking to stay undefeated in atop the NFC West after 3 consecutive nail-biting finishes over the Seahawks, the Saints, and a game-winning field goal, a walk-off field goal against the Arizona Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Jaguars are looking to take advantage of a downtrodden AFC South, currently headlined by the undefeated Indianapolis Colts led by Daniel Jones. Jacksonville, to me, are an interesting team because they've beaten a bad Panthers team. The Texans really aren't that great. The offensive line is in shambles, and they really haven't found a semblance of an offensive attack just yet. And yet their only loss this year was after Joe Burrow exited the game in week 2, and Jake Browning put up nearly 31 points against their defense. So this is the Jaguars' biggest test of the year, and this is also San Francisco's biggest test of the season, if you ask me. And now the Niners are faced with life without Nick Bosa for the entire season. Could they be susceptible to a trap game in week 4 at home? They're resting on their laurels. They're rested. They're sleeping in their own beds. Brock Purdy's back. He's on track to play. He did and is practicing today, that being Thursday, September 25th. And DeMarcus Robinson is also back. So you are getting some help returning from the injured list and a suspension, but no Nick Bosa. How does your defense hold up? How do young guys step up in his absence? This may be one of the most important first quarter of the season of the schedule games for San Francisco as well. They're 3-0 right now. They're still at home. They have some sort of a rest advantage because of that, but in the future, in week 5, 6, 7, and 8, that is the stretch of the season where things get really tough for the 49ers. If they can find a way to win this Sunday against the Jaguars, you play the Rams on Thursday Night Football, you travel to Tampa Bay, you play the Falcons and the Texans in back-to-back weeks. So getting a win on Sunday is a massive, massive success if they can do it for the 49ers. And if they can get it done, they can secure at least a 500 record by the time they face their toughest schedule, which I'm not assuming San Francisco will lose 4 consecutive games at any point this year. But when you play the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Falcons, and Texans, there's a real chance San Francisco doesn't play as well against those teams. However, you beat Jacksonville, you're at least guaranteeing yourself a 4-4 record leaving Week 8, which is never a bad thing for San Francisco. They're playing a really good team, I think, this Sunday. And sure, you can argue San Francisco, they haven't been great offensively. They've been hurt offensively, but this screams trap game. This screams, hey, you're 3-0, Purdy's back, DeMarcus Robinson's back, you're feeling good, you're 2-1 in the division, and then bang, you get smacked with the loss, you're 3-1, and you have the Rams right around the corner. So there's really so many ways to kind of break down this game as to how do you feel emotionally, how do you feel in regards to what San Francisco can do. Many reasons to feel good walking into week 4, but I also think we have to be realistic here and think that there is a real chance San Francisco does leave their second home game and this Sunday with their first loss of the season. With that said, let's dive in. Niners, Jaguars, week 4. Who comes out on top? Does San Francisco stay undefeated, or is this a trap game for the red and gold? And to begin the show, to begin the breakdown, I think it would be a good point to discuss the Jaguars' offense because they, like San Francisco this year, have been a very big mixed bag. The Jaguars have a new head coach, Liam Cohen, a new offensive play caller, a new defensive play caller. They're a whole new regime out there in Jacksonville, and now they're utilizing the Buccaneers, McVay, Shanahan wide zone offense. They want to attack over the middle of the football field. They want to run the football. But it's worth noting that they are 3 games in with a same quarterback, but a new play caller, some new weapons in place, a lot of new offensive linemen, new running backs back there. Bayshal Tootin, Travis Etienne's old, but my point still remains. It's a fresh take on this Jaguars offense. They're trying to make and figure out the puzzle pieces for their offense, and it really has been a mess through the first three games. The offense has 13 drops through 3 games. That is the most in the entire NFL. They have 15 offensive penalties. That's tied for first, meaning that's bad the most in football. And they've thrown 4 interceptions. That is tied for second. It's not been great. It's been kind of a up and down roller coaster ride where you may be 2-1, but the results are not there just yet. My question is this the game where the Jaguars offense kind of wakes up and you see Brian Thomas Jr., you see Travis Hunter, you see Etienne and Tootin and Trevor Lawrence play their best game of the season on the road against a pretty good San Francisco 49ers team? That is my fear, that things finally click in week 4. They have an entire offseason with the new regime. They played 3 games. Things haven't worked, but you give it now, Cohen and company, the chance to kind of adjust, see what didn't work through the first 3 games, and maybe week 4 becomes the game where the Jaguars offense finally finds its footing. Can San Francisco avoid that? Can their defense play good enough to keep the Jaguars offense down, push them further down if they possibly can? But let's start things off at quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. He and I think, is it Brock Purdy are the only quarterbacks in that 2021. So Lawrence is the only quarterback in the 2021 draft class of those first rounders to still be on the same team. He's getting paid almost the exact same money as Brock Purdy per year, $55 million. And he really has not played up to par thus far for Jacksonville. Through 3 games this year, he has really excelled over the short and intermediate part of the field, over the middle of the football field. It's not been a long, deep threat offense. It's all been middle of the football field, short, 10, 15 yards, nothing downfield. In fact, 38% of Trevor Lawrence's passing attempts have come in the short and intermediate game over the middle of the defense. 30 of his 40, he's 30 for 40 on those passing attempts. So has found success over the middle in his passing attack. But to that I say, here's Fred Warner, here's D. Winters. San Francisco does have the great eraser, if you will, on their defense. They have the best linebacker in football. In fact, I'd probably say Warner and Winters have been playing as the best linebacking duo in football to begin the year, which is saying a lot because Winters was, albeit in line for a big jump, he's played, I think, better than the expectations that were set for him at the beginning of the year said. But Warner, I think, can completely erase what Lawrence wants to do and what the Jaguars want to do over the middle of the football field. But if you look at this year alone, so the Seahawks game, Sam Darnold, the Saints game, Spencer Rattler, then the Cardinals game, Kyler Murray, this season, San Francisco has held opposing quarterbacks to a 68% completion rate over the middle of the football field. That is 17 for 25 to 148 yards, no touchdowns, and an 87.1 passer rating allowed. Really not that bad. Obviously, it's not perfect, but they have played so much bend don't break defense. They've gotten takeaways. They've gotten, punts on, or third down stops. They've done things the right way and saved San Francisco a ton. And a lot of that has to do with limiting what quarterbacks can do over the middle of the football field. Kind of harkening back to my point earlier of the Jaguars offense really not being able to find their deep game just yet through the air. Trevor Lawrence is 0 for 9 on deep passing attempts this season. That is 20 plus yards through the air, downfield. Now, he hasn't gotten help from guys like Brian Thomas Jr. He hasn't gotten help from guys like Parker Washington, Dimey Brown, and Travis Hunter. It's been a much more kind of stuck in the mud, kind of malaise of an offense through the air for Jacksonville. And for kind of context, where Jacksonville is 0 for 9 through 3 games on big-time throws downfield, 20-plus yards, Purdy had 5 in one game against the Seahawks. So that's attempts, mind you, not completions. Like, they really do not have or haven't tried to throw the ball downfield. It's all kind of dialing things in, tuning things kind of over the middle, on the outs, never deep downfield. And, when you look at, for more context, Trevor Lawrence right now as a quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars has the 18th highest average depth per target. He's a below average quarterback at targeting deep down the football field. That to me works in San Francisco's favor. When you have an opposing offense that wants to funnel their offense through the middle of the football field, you're just wanting to feed Fred Warner. You're wanting to feed D. Winters. You're wanting to feed San Francisco's defense where their best defensive player is. That doesn't sound smart. In fact, that leads into San Francisco's defense, at least through the air, having an advantage against the Jaguars' scheme. So that to me works in favor of San Francisco in a big way this Sunday. And for more context, Trevor Lawrence is tied with Brock Purdy, who's played one game this year, and Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers, who have had their own offensive problems out there in Pittsburgh, for the 8th highest turnover-worthy play percentage in football. And Rodgers or Lawrence is also tied for the 4th most turnover-worthy plays. So he is going to put the ball in harm's way. He is going to give the football up. Now, I get it. You're in close games. You want to make a play, but Lawrence has never really looked like the top prospect he once was, which I think he has the archetype to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And I think this offense does fit him a lot better than what it was like with Doug Peterson out there as a head coach. But he just really, his vision, his timing's been off. The ball placement hasn't been there. In fact, Lawrence will just miss guys who are wide open downfield. So you're not facing the best quarterback this Sunday. He's not going to tempt you or kind of go at you deep downfield, and it'll all kind of go back towards where Fred Warner takes away a part of the field for San Francisco's defense. So Lawrence's skill set, the way he plays football, kind of feeds into San Francisco having more defensive success. He will give the football up. He will not target them deep. He will turn the football over. So that does help San Francisco. However, the Niners have also played some bad quarterbacks and even some guys that don't turn the ball over, and they've been in really close games this year. Every game has been down to the wire. Every game has been nail-biting. And I think the Jaguars, through 3 games this year, probably have the best defense they've played. Obviously, Seattle, it was a big test. You're on the road in Seattle. They have a heck of a defense out there too. But from what's been put on paper and film and their PFF scores and box scores, everything included, Jacksonville probably has the better defense of the 3 teams they have played. And when you kind of line those things up, you're looking for just your offense to score just enough, right? Give me a 1-score game again or whatever. But this will be a nail-biting game. And you might find small mistakes, small minute details being the difference maker this Sunday against the Jaguars because, and a big reason of this is Brian Thomas Jr., right? The Jaguars offense has, again, not found its footing. They've been in the malaise. There's been plays and drives this year where Brian Thomas Jr. Just doesn't seem to want to play football, doesn't want to be on the field. Is giving up on plays, not a great run blocker. He's dropped 3 passes this season, which that's also a quarterback stat too, in a sense of like, was the ball put in the right place? But I think it's kind of equal to say that Trevor Lawrence hasn't played great football this year, and that's pretty evident. But the Jaguars' offensive weapons have also not helped Lawrence when he's also made some nice throws. So it's a give and take of that, and Brian Thomas Jr. has been a big example of that for the Jacksonville offense. 24 targets this year, so about 8 per game. Just 7 receptions and 3 drops. That's tied for second in the NFL. Now, what Jacksonville does really well is they move their guys around from the slot to the left, to the right. They move these guys all the way around, and Brian Thomas will find himself playing in the slot about 30% of the time. against opposing defenses. So it's a big test for guys like Upton Stout when Thomas Jr. is there. Maybe you see San Francisco utilize a different cornerback, whether it's Chase Lucas or they just have a bigger body slot guy there. Because Thomas Jr. hasn't really found success whatsoever with Lawrence playing quarterback. His entire success as a rookie almost came with Mac Jones playing quarterback. So something does seem to be off there. It feels like Thomas Jr. wants to, play deep downfield, and Lawrence doesn't really want to do that just yet. So my bigger question mark about BTJ was really, is this the game they get on the right footing? Is this the game their contracts align and they finally find some chemistry? Because if you look at what BTJ has done this year, he lines up primarily on the left, wide left of their offense. That is usually where Bernardo Green plays cornerback. So primarily you're going to see Green and Thomas Jr. going head to head. Now, I'd probably give and would lean towards BTJ having a higher success rate, but Green hasn't been necessarily terrible this season. 12 targets, 6 catches allowed, 3 PBUs, and nearly 40 yards per game allowed. It's not too bad. The bigger thing with that is there's always been one drive. There's always been that one drive per game that Green struggles. There's a big penalty. There's a deep ball downfield. Is this the game that Green can kind of tighten things up and avoid that one big bad drive where we all kind of scratch our head and say, what are you doing? It was the JSN completion week 1. It was the bad first drive against Chris Olave where Rattler just missed him wide open for a touchdown. And then last Sunday against the Cardinals, it was the DPI in the end zone against Zay Jones. Now, I think there has been improvement by Green, but that is something to look out for. The Jaguars are trying to find some answers. Could you see them look at that and say, Green has been penalized a ton this year. We have guys that can get deep downfield. Let's take a shot, try to steal a touchdown, try to steal some, offensive positioning on the football field, gain some free yards, if you will, and maybe steal some points. I can see that being the case for Jacksonville. I can see that being a way to get BTJ involved in the offense. Now, will Lawrence do that? The last 3 games wouldn't indicate that, but I think it's worth mentioning that Green's had that one bad drive per game that could lead to BTJ getting going, and all it takes is one big play, I think, can change the outcome of this game. We've seen San Francisco's defense play lights out and shut down teams like Seattle, the Saints, and the Cardinals, and Jacksonville's offense through the air is nothing to write home about. No one's saying that. They're not great. A lot of miscues. But I think this will be a defensive matchup where we're sitting back like, it's getting close. It's 20-17. It's 14-20 late. Who can make the big play to kind of change the outcome, whether it's San Francisco's defense or Jacksonville's offense or vice versa. This game will come down to the margins, I believe, this Sunday. The next guy to watch out for is Travis Hunter. And when I say that, I kind of say it lightly because there have been some plays where you've seen the potential of Travis Hunter. He can make a couple guys miss, but they've had a really hard time working him into the offense and the defense. They really haven't really known what to do with him just yet, where you can see the potential and you can kind of picture what it could look like down the road, but he is not the quote-unquote Shohei Ohtani of the NFL just yet. And they've already been asking Liam Cohen, like, how do you plan on getting Hunter more involved? And they've talked about simplifying things for him. I think they are going to manufacture touches for him in this game to kind of get the ball in his hands. And this is the game. This is the matchup where I think San Francisco might be hurt the most. It's Upton Stout against Travis Hunter. It's the number 2 overall pick this past year, traded up for him in Jacksonville. Stout's played a pretty good cornerback for the last 3 weeks, but he's a rookie. He's an undersized guy. Hunter isn't the biggest dude, but he lines up in the slot 62.7% of his snaps. Who was going to come out on top, Stout or Hunter? Now this year, Stout has been targeted 13 times. He's allowed 8 catches. He has 2 pass breakups, and he's only allowed 22 yards per game. That inherently, it's pretty good. That's been a pretty good outing for Stout to begin his career. However, I do think that Hunter could pose a threat. Again, they are miles apart in regards to, prospects. Like, Hunter is a better cornerback prospect than Stout was and is, and Hunter is probably the best offensive prospect in the entire draft class, but they've had some problems getting him going. And Stout's played fairly well. However, the one area that I think could raise problems for San Francisco's secondary is their cornerbacks, not including offsetting penalties or declined penalties. Their cornerbacks had a really hard time with penalties as a whole this year. Green and Stout are tied for the second and third most penalties this season, and you put Lenore in there, also penalized amongst the top 3 cornerbacks in football. You have an offense that's struggling in Jacksonville. You force the football downfield. You kind of make these cornerbacks panic a bit. You test them early. They're young. Green's in year 2. Stout's in year 1, 3 games in. I think that could pose a threat. Now, again, I don't know. The Jaguars offense has to actually show something worth being positive about. But that hasn't been the case. But that could be an issue for San Francisco. I trust Robert Saleh. I trust this defense. But these are young guys in big games like this. And when things are tight, they've proven to come up big for you. Stout had an amazing pass breakup against Zay Jones against the Cardinals to save that game for San Francisco last week. But you're not like Travis Hunter's a better receiver than Zay Jones is, in my opinion. They're different guys, but they do pose different threats. And I think, for as fierce and as relentless as Stout can be, if you're manufacturing touches for Travis Hunter, the odds are Hunter probably wins that battle more often than not. So I'll give Stout his credit. He's fought hard. He's come back, but penalties have been an issue. The Saints game, they were a problem. Stout got called for one. Siegel was called for one. Green's been called for a couple the first 3 weeks. So penalties on the secondary in San Francisco could be a problem. But I think this will be a game where the Jaguars try to get Hunter and Brian Thomas going. I'm assuming BTJ deep downfield to kind of test Green and maybe, test Stout with Hunter on manufactured touches. That said, let's continue to move on to the next guy, and that is quickly mentioning Dyami Brown. I think he's back this week. He'll probably be the receiver 2, be out of the slot. So we'll see how he looks. I think he's a pretty good receiver. He does pose a threat, so we'll mention him. But the big one, and I've already seen it mentioned a handful of times in the YouTube chat with the live show today. Let's see if I can find it again. Fish and Chips says, our DBs should be okay with the wide receivers. I will say it again. Strange, that is Jacksonville's tight end, Brenton Strange, will be targeted often. It's not just often, Fish and Chips. In fact, Brenton Strange walks into week 4 with 16 targets on the season. That is the second most on the team. He leads Jacksonville with 137 passing yards and has primarily flourished in the short yardage game over the middle of the football field and in the flat. Now, one area that I think that we've already hit on this, that Lawrence has primarily targeted is the middle of the football field, intermediate and short yardage areas. That's where Brenton Strange has done his damage. Now, then there's Fred Warner and D. Winters. I do think San Francisco should be able to limit or maybe even erase Brenton Strange from the game plan entirely. I want to give Jacksonville credit and Cohen credit. It's a good offensive play caller out there in Jacksonville, but I just think that Lawrence, he's not going to sit back there and he's not going to be able to target Strange over and over and over again with Warner and Winters primarily guarding Strange. Those two guys are the best coverage linebackers in football. They're awesome. And so I think that when you if this was, let's say, the Cardinals defense, or say it was, Jacksonville against the Panthers or the Bengals, or let's say it's the Texans, who are a good defense as well, those three defenses are going to let Jacksonville get away with more things. They're going to let Strange eat some. But I think that Warner and Winters should be able to at least limit what Strange can do. But yes, worth mentioning here, Strange has been essentially Lawrence's favorite target throughout the first 3 weeks. But again, worth mentioning. But when you want to pass the football, you have to pass block. And I think that has been a pretty big problem for Jacksonville. PFF has been really kind to them. They are a top 10 pass blocking unit in the entire league right now. But I do think there is a little bit of muddied water there. Now, when you see PFF in their team reports, they talk about running backs and offensive linemen and tight ends together in regards to pass blocking. When you primarily focus on Jacksonville's offensive linemen, it gets a little bit trickier to say they're a top 10 passing blocking offense in football, because starting at left tackle, Walker Little has, coming into this year, he's played 3 games. He has allowed, through the first 3 weeks, 14 pressures, 3 quarterback hits, and 1 sack this season. And this is, to me, where San Francisco may indeed miss Nick Bosa a ton. When you see a clear deficiency on the opposing team's offensive line, that is where you'd normally say, oh, Nick Bosa, have fun, let him loose, and let him be a relentless force against, in this case, Walker Little. Yet, there is no Nick Bosa. You don't have somebody that can continually beat a guy on first, second, and third down. Yes, you love Bryce Huff. Yes, you love what Michael Williams has done through 3 games. You're hoping to get some sort of production from Samuel Kawanu and Yetur Gross-Matos as the year goes on. But you do wish you had Nick Bosa. Now, on third downs, I think Huff can easily beat Walker Little. He's an okay left tackle, but he's really struggled early in the year, in which, no offense to the Panthers and the Texans and the Bengals, albeit the Bengals have Hendrickson and Jamar Stewart, and the Texans have Hunter and Anderson, Bryce Huff has played better than all of those guys this year. Now, can that continue? I think so. I think Little really is it is a spot San Francisco's defense and Robert Saleh can say, hey, attack, 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 attack. We can get through to the quarterback via the blindside blocking of Little. But that kind of continues into the interior, where we've discussed, how does Bosa's loss impact San Francisco? Can Michael and the rest of the interior guys continue to force pressure and force guys to the outside? Well, one, Lawrence is not going to run the football. He doesn't want to scramble too much. He wants to stay in the pocket and make some plays. And if that pocket collapses, you are likely going to be able to bring him down. And if Little's a problem for Lawrence on his backside, his blind side, it's not like their guards, Ezra Cleveland and Patrick McCarry, have played any better. In fact, those 2 guys have combined for 10 pressures allowed this year. And those guys are smaller guards playing in a wide zone offense. That, to me, leads me to believe that Alfred Collins and guys like Michael Williams, stronger dudes that want to push the pocket, are probably going to have success in either getting to Lawrence or at least forcing pressures against him to make him make a play. I do think San Francisco's defense can handle, the Jaguars' offensive line. And on top of that, those 3 players, Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, and Patrick McCarry, have combined for 6 of their 15 NFL leading offensive penalties. So you're going to get called for holds. You're going to get called for, illegal hands to the face. You're going to get called for all that stuff. And you're going to make those smaller bodied interior guys panic, hopefully get Jacksonville into longer third downs, longer second downs. I do think San Francisco's defensive line and defense can hold up just as well without Nick Bosa this Sunday against Jacksonville. Now, maybe you see the Jaguars go to a more quick game. You see more screens, end arounds, again, more manufactured touches for guys, but that remains to be seen. This is the Buccaneers offense, really, of last year. That really wasn't part of their game. So the odds would say that's not going to be the case this Sunday against San Francisco. Like, their offensive line really isn't that great. But here, like the next two stats I think are very telling. I'm going to give you. On top of the pressures, I think San Francisco can get in other teams like Carolina, Cincinnati, and Houston has gotten against the Jaguars' offensive line. Trevor Lawrence has only had 2.6 seconds to throw per dropback. That is the sixth lowest time in football. He is hike, boom, balls out. There is no 7-step drops. It is back. We got to go. They're not holding up. We have to make a play. So there is an ability to put a lot of pressure on Lawrence, force him into bad plays. He has 4 interceptions already. There's a reason for that. He's having to force throws. There's no time to throw. This is a really good day or good weekend for San Francisco's defense, especially knowing it's your first game without Nick Bosa this year. It's kind of a nice introduction to life without your best defensive lineman. The next stat, though, is, okay, what does San Francisco's defense, what does Saleh cook up without Nick Bosa out there? Does he blitz more? Does he not blitz more? And this stat is courtesy of ESPN's Nick Wagoner. Love Nick, does great work out there for ESPN. In the 97 career games in the regular season for Nick Bosa, San Francisco has blitzed 20% of its snaps. That is with Saleh, Ryans, Wilkes, and Sorensen. 4 different DCs. So a lot of sample size there. 97 games in the regular season, only blitzing 20% of the time. But when you lose Bosa in 18 games without Nick Bosa, San Francisco has ramped up their blitz percentage nearly 12% to 31.9% without their star defensive end. And if you want to dive even deeper into the specifics here, Robert Saleh coached the San Francisco 49ers defense in 2020. Nick Bosa got hurt in week number 2. It wasn't a great year for San Francisco by any means, but with the personnel they had that year, which again wasn't great but wasn't bad, they blitzed 34.4% of their snaps without Nick Bosa. We should expect a lot more blitzing from Robert Saleh's defense. Whether it is a 10% jump, a 14% jump, you are going to see a large increase in blitzing with Upton Stout. You saw it with Jair Brown last week. You saw it with linebackers in previous weekends too. They are going to want to force and manufacture pressure on Trevor Lawrence, force him into to bad throws, into throwing interceptions. Again, high turnover rate, and on Nick Bosa, that leads to blitzing, that leads to forced throws, and the Jaguars' offensive line really isn't as good as PFF says it is. So there is a lot of confidence for me against Jacksonville's offense. I think there's room for San Francisco's defense to struggle, primarily in the secondary, but if you're getting pressure, you are leading or you're leading San Francisco's defense down a really successful road to create turnovers, to get pressure and force Lawrence into some bad throws. So my money is on San Francisco's defense being able to keep their offense in this game and keep them afloat throughout the 4 quarters they play against Jaguars on Sunday. We have a question here, or a comment here by Tommy Huxley via $2 super chat. Tommy, how you doing, Fairy? He says here, Sterling says, he's referring to Trevor Lawrence. He says, Sterling says a horse face, Trevor Lawrence, is an elite quarterback. Au contraire, my friend. Trevor Lawrence is far from an elite quarterback. Far, far, far from an elite quarterback. In fact, I think he might be a reason San Francisco loses this game, and kind of wrapping things up against or for the Jacksonville's offense and what San Francisco's defense should be able to do and why they should find success is that, again, you can get pressure, you can force Lawrence into turnover-worthy plays, he'll make mistakes. On top of that, Jacksonville has the 24th ranked third down conversion rate for their offense this year. The Jaguars cannot stay on the football field. They don't score many points with their offense. Like, their offense should have lost them every single game this year. Meanwhile, their defense has been really good. And I think, and we saw with Baker Mayfield when he first came to Tampa Bay, and even now, somewhat, albeit there has been more trust established there with Baker in Tampa Bay. Now that Cohen's in Jacksonville, there is this kind of restructuring manipulation of the offense where in previous years it was, hey, let's drop back 34 times a game, number one overall pick quarterback. We trust him. We don't run the football. We pass the football here in Jacksonville. Now you're seeing that kind of turn down, where despite the Jaguars' struggles in the passing game, they really want to establish the run and they want to utilize play action. Right now, Trevor Lawrence, 20% of his dropbacks are in play action. That is tied for the second in football. And a big reason they've been able to do that is because of their success on the ground. Bayshell Tootin, rookie, looks tremendous. He gave them a reason to trade away Tanks Bigsby to the Eagles this year. Travis Etienne has also been awesome this year. The Jaguars are averaging 141 yards per game on the ground. They run the football like there is no tomorrow. That is fifth in the NFL. They are running the football nearly 30 times a game, the ninth most. Their MO, their game plan is to run the football, play takeaway, to establish the run, to get into play action. They do not want Lawrence dropping back 30, 40 times a game. They want to run, then beat you via the play action. Now, Travis Etienne has looked awesome. He is tied for third in the NFL with 167 yards after contact. He has speed. He has a little bit of power there. He's also tied for fourth with 6 explosive runs, and their offensive line, where they do struggle with the pass blocking, is a top 4 run blocking unit in football. This team knows how to run the football. This is San Francisco's biggest test. This is their assessment game as to where that run defense is. This, like the pass rushing game without Nick Bosa, I think this is where they're going to struggle the most. Yes, they've been great so far, limiting James Conner and Trey Benson and Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. This is the game, though. A legitimate team that wants to run the football over and over again. The Cardinals last Sunday, they want to run the football, but they just couldn't run the football, and they hadn't been able to their first 2 games of the season. The Jaguars, they want to run the football, and they can run the football 30-plus times against you every single game. They want to own the time of possession. They want to run the football. They want to utilize play action. They want to play keep away from San Francisco. So this is the biggest test for them. San Francisco is probably not going to have CJ West on Sunday. They're not going to have Nick Bosa. So it is up for big guys like Micah Williams, Bryce Huff, who normally isn't a great run defender, to show, hey, I can adequately replace Nick Bosa in the meantime while you find somebody else via trade, maybe down the road. Alfred Collins, though, can you continue to grow? Michael, can you continue to be a really good run defender? Kalia Davis. Can Jordan Elliott, who's having a tremendous year for San Francisco, can he continue to be on an elite pace through 4 games? It's a big test for them. These guys don't go down. They are kind of a nice 1-2 punch. Tootin is the power back, the bigger guy who's like, hey, fight me. I want to go in between the trenches, in the tackles, and get dirty yards. Etienne is, give me outside and I'm gone. This is a really good test. And I think this is why this game will become a low-scoring game in a game where San Francisco's defense is maybe on their heels at times. I think the Jaguars want to have some long drives. They want to wear out San Francisco's defense, where there's a real possibility that if the Jaguars can establish the run, San Francisco's defense may not be able to make a game-saving play late. However, I know I say that, I do want to talk about San Francisco's offense against what has been a really good Jacksonville defense. But one final note here. Jacksonville is also tied for 5th in the NFL with 9 penalties, or just under 9 penalties per game, and they're giving away nearly 73 free yards of penalties per game. So there is a lot of reasons the Jacksonville offense will stumble, but if they can run the football, could be a long day for San Francisco. So we'll see. We'll see. Jacksonville's played in 3-1 score games for a reason. They've been in close games, just like San Francisco, albeit San Francisco looks better. This is going to be a dogfight to the end for the red and gold. We have a question here from Lori Matthews. What is the timeline for CJ West's return? I think he'll be back by Thursday against the Rams. He was going to try to give it a go because he broke his thumb against the Cardinals. Give it a go this Sunday in practice, but he hasn't practiced at all this week. So my assumption is he'll probably get a brace or a club on and play through it against the Rams on Thursday. But if not, he'll probably be back week 6 against the Bucs at the latest. So 1 to 2 weeks he'll miss, but not too many games he'll be out. But could be a big loss for San Francisco on Sunday, knowing they don't have Bosa and now no CJ West. But okay, let's get to how San Francisco's offense can beat the Jacksonville defense. How can Brock Purdy, who is returning, that's the assumption here, this Sunday. He practiced today on Thursday. He was taking first-team reps. He's looked good. So Brock Purdy is probably back. And funny enough, I do think this is kind of the Niners playing a mirror of themselves, where you have Liam Cohen, Shanahan, McVay offense influenced, wide zone, smaller offensive linemen that can kind of get bullied in the passing game but are good on the ground. Whereas the defense, they run this Saleh style 4-2 defense. They play cover 1, they'll play cover 3, they'll play cover 4. Like, it's very much San Francisco playing San Francisco, albeit the execution is flawed on the Jaguars and a ton. But their defense, through games against, again, the Panthers and the Bengals with a backup quarterback and the Texans, who are terrible this year, 0-3, have limited their opponents to just 51 points through 3 games. That is 17 points per game. That is really good through 3 games to begin the season. And they've also forced 9 turnovers. That includes 7 interceptions. They are getting the ball back. Yes, they are taking advantage of bad teams, but what would you want them to do? Now, this is their biggest offensive test of the year. Now, that would have been the Bengals, and they lost that game. Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, but Jake Browning torched them. So the question really is, do you trust Jacksonville? They are 2-1. They've beaten, right now at least, 2 bad teams in Carolina and Houston. They've also lost to a backup quarterback in Cincinnati, who was then disheveled against the Vikings the following game. So we don't really know who Jacksonville is, but the paper tells us they're a pretty good defense this year. In fact, their run defense ranks 3rd in the entire NFL per PFF. They're holding opponents to about 82.7 yards per game. That is 5th in yards allowed. Pretty good. They're also holding opponents down to 20 attempts per game. They are not allowing teams to run against them. Now, you can say, well, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, and Nick Chubb, and, Chuba Hubbard. Like, you can't really compare those guys. And I would agree. However, it's not as if San Francisco has been as successful as those teams on the ground. In fact, San Francisco has really struggled to establish the run. Christian McCaffrey has been far better in the passing game, and it's really imperative San Francisco can find their footing because looking at the Panthers, the Bengals, and Texans, they're averaging about 22 attempts per game this year on the ground. They're bad teams playing from behind. That would rank 29th in football with 22 attempts per game. San Francisco's averaging roughly 30 attempts per game. They want to run the football. They want to find a way to establish play action. They want to find a way, to get play action going, get Purdy kind of on bootlegs and put the defense on their heels. If you can establish the run, you can expose this Jaguars secondary. It's not that great. But what Jacksonville has done is they're taking advantage of bad rushing attacks, forcing bad quarterback play into dropping back 30, 40 times a game. And all of a sudden, that leads to picks, that leads to takeaways, and it leads you into winning football games. So the Niners are not like any team Jacksonville has played this year. And the Jaguars aren't really who San Francisco has played this year, in my opinion, at least, on defense. Going back to kind of the notes and the stats you have, their pass rush in Jacksonville has been tremendous. Now, again, they played the Panthers, the Bengals, and Texans. Their pass blocking offensive lines rank 18th, 26th, and 27th. Somehow San Francisco's ranks 8th in football. I don't think that's the case. Connor Colby was terrible against the Cardinals. Can that pick up? Hopefully so. Brendel hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible just yet. And Pooney's played better, albeit there has been some blips on the radar. Whereas McKivitz and Trent have played better in recent weeks. I would say San Francisco is probably more towards the 14th or the 15th ranked offensive line compared to top 10. That does not seem right to me, but I digress. And this is a great thing for how bad the Niners' interior offensive line has been last year and even at times this year at blocking for the quarterback. The Jaguars do not get pressure from their interior offensive linemen. They have 12 total interior defensive line pressures. That is tied for 29th. So if you're out there thinking, Eric Armstead revenge game, think twice. Devon Hamilton's not going to get home a ton. He's a run defender. They do not get pressure from their interior defensive line. This should be a nice game for Brendel, Pooney, and Colby. However, they utilize these guys on stunts. Their whole thing is the interior guys are just there to make way for Josh Hines-Allen off the edge and Trevon Walker off the edge too. And I'll tell you this, those two guys have been lights out this year, especially JHA, Josh Hines-Allen. They are the only team in football this year where their edge rushers make up for more than 50% of their pressures. And Hines-Allen and Walker have combined for 31 pressures and 3 sacks through 3 games. Now, again, they're playing bad offensive line, but those guys can get home a lot. And if Colby's still banged up and Pooney kind of reverts back to who he was week 1 against the Seahawks, who Pooney and Colby are probably still injured, so there is that, but that doesn't matter. That's who's starting. I expect other teams to take advantage of that. That said, there is going to be a ton of pressure on Trent Williams and Colt McKivitz to lock down the edge rushers of the Jaguars. Now, Walker has a 10.5% pass rush win rate, so there's less of a threat there, but he's a relentless effort guy, a ton of strength, a great bull rush, a little bit of bend. That has been a problem for McKivitz in previous years, whereas Josh Hines-Allen, that dude's darn near unstoppable. Now, Trent and McKivitz probably are the best offensive tackles they played so far this year, but they still pose a threat to San Francisco's pass blocking, which at times has been really, really bad, albeit has improved in previous weeks. I thought they were pretty good against the Cardinals, but still, the Jaguars have one of the best pass rushers in football. And a bigger portion of this, or portion of this, is because they get pressure not from the defensive tackles. They get pressure, and a lot of it from their linebackers, their secondary, their cornerbacks, where right now, the Jaguars this year have 18 pressures from guys not on the defensive line. That ranks second in football. They blitz a ton. They want to get home a lot, and they're utilizing guys like their nickelbacks, their safeties, their linebackers to get home. Devin Lloyd, their starting linebacker, has 5 pressures this year. One of their safeties, one of their secondary pieces, Andrew Wingard, has 15 pass rushing opportunities. Why is that? They are bringing guys from every which way. Their defensive coordinator, he has coached with Robert Saleh, he has coached with Vic Fangio, and he's also coached with Brian Flores. He knows how to mix and match, kind of change coverages, confuse quarterbacks, and all 3 of those defenses at times have given the Niners offensive line some problems. So I'm expecting trench warfare once again. It's always important, but it matters a lot in a game like this. In fact, right now, through 3 games, 3 very, very close games against the Panthers, against the Bengals, and against the Texans, Jacksonville is blitzing or opposing quarterbacks 33% of their snaps. 1/3 of the time, they are blitzing opposing quarterbacks. That's a lot. Now, going back to the Nick Bosa conversation, without Nick Bosa or with Nick Bosa, San Francisco's blitzing 20% of the time. Now, without Nick Bosa, they're blitzing 34% of the time with Saleh playing as the DC. The Jaguars are blitzing with Josh Hines-Allen, with all their guys healthy, 33% of the time, and they'll disguise them. They'll bring in guys from the second level, the third level. They'll bring guys from everywhere trying to get home to quarterbacks. However, I did some digging. I got real deep, and I said, PFF, let me find a way where San Francisco can win this football game. I dug deep into Brock Purdy's stats, and I did the analytics, the calculations to say, what has Brock Purdy done against the blitz in his career? And I averaged things out because it's really hard to say 2022 as a rookie, 23 near MVP win, then 24 where everybody's hurt. What has he done as on average against the blitz for Brock Purdy in 24, 23, and 2024 on average? A 77.6 PFF grade, a 66.5 completion rate, 1,388 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. What does that mean? Blitzing Brock Purdy is not really the answer to beating him. Now, yes, pressure helps. Obviously, a pressure, a non-designed pressure, if you will, probably would be better fare for the Jaguars defense, but blitzing Brock Purdy is not the answer. In fact, I would say not blitzing him and is finding ways to get pressure on him via Josh Hines-Allen, who has been awesome this year off the edge, is probably the route to take, because blitzing Brock Purdy on slants, on screens, I think this will be a massive game for Christian McCaffrey through the air. Now, the Jaguars linebackers can cover pretty well, and that will be respected by San Francisco, but you talk about maybe the Jaguars run defense holding up well and being able to hold San Francisco's struggling rushing attack back. CMC is going to have another 10 targets through the air. It'll be screens. It'll be checkdowns. He is going to be open a ton. He'll be fed a ton. He has 77 total touches right now through 3 games. That may hit 90. a lot of them this Sunday. So with Brock Purdy back or Mac Jones back, doesn't matter. I really think that you're going to see a ton of Christian McCaffrey on Sunday. A ton of Christian McCaffrey. We have a question here in the YouTube chat by Fish and Chips saying, hang on, there's a chance Adrian Martinez plays on Sunday. And I think there's always a chance. Guys can certainly, if Purdy isn't healthy or whatever, but I'm pretty sure Brock Purdy's playing. And if he's not, Mac Jones will play. San Francisco hasn't added a quarterback. That tells me Brock Purdy or Mac Jones are going to play. So no, the chances are probably like a 0% that Martinez is out there lined up under center. So no, not high at all. Anyways, Brock Purdy, great against the blitz. I think that's a good thing for him. Feed Christian McCaffrey. Hopefully, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think a big matchup this Sunday for San Francisco's offense, for Brock Purdy, would be nice to have Jauan Jennings out there lined up in the slot opposite of Jordan Lewis. Jennings hasn't practiced a week. It seems like the shoulder, the foot, the ankle, whatever it is still a problem because Jordan Lewis has been maybe an early season Pro Bowl nod for me out there in Jacksonville. He's playing the nickel back, the slot cornerback position. A 42.6 passer rating allowed when targeted in the slot. Whenever he's lined up outside, which is rare, his total is a 37.5 passer rating allowed. Avoid Jordan Lewis if you can, but it would help having Jauan Jennings out there. Lewis has 2 interceptions on the year, 3 pass breakups, a 79 coverage grade. But having a size difference would help. Jordan Lewis is 5'10". Jauan Jennings is 6'3". Purdy loves to high point the football. It would be great to have Jauan Jennings out there lined up across from Jordan Lewis to help alleviate some pressure, give Brock more than one weapon to throw to. But you had DeMarcus Robinson this Sunday, which he was really great in the preseason with Mac and Purdy. So that'll help San Francisco a ton. I don't know where he's at. He's been practicing, staying healthy and stuff, but I think getting Robinson back, you're probably not going to see MVS a lot or at all. Hopefully not. I know Nick Bosa was put on IR today for Robinson to be active, so I'm assuming MVS is a healthy scratch because he's just not good. Robinson will help kind of flush things out for the rest of San Francisco's offense to help open space for guys like Pearsall, like CMC and others. So Robinson being 6'1", also having a 3-inch advantage over Jordan Lewis will probably help too. So, or a 2-inch advantage over him will help. So even then, like San Francisco has the height advantage with DeMarcus Robinson out there in the slot. So utilize that, Purdy, if you're out there on Sunday, which it seems like you're going to be, but utilize that. Small guys, big slot receivers. That's why that's the archetype for the Shanahan offense. Bigger slot guys can take down bigger slot cornerbacks. So hoping they utilize that to their advantage. I think it could be a big difference maker in this game where Jamar Chase was eating for Cincinnati. T. Higgins was eating for Cincinnati. So I'm hoping that's the case where they realize that Jordan Lewis is having a great year, but a 3-inch advantage is pretty big. And if you had Jauan, you have a 5-inch one or close to a 6-inch one, which I don't care what they tell you, folks. Size matters. So especially playing slot receiver, size really matters. So hopefully one of those guys can be out there, which it seems like Robinson will be, but would love Jauan to play, and it's a big loss. He may not this Sunday. However, there are 2 guys in San Francisco on the Jacksonville secondary where San Francisco can exploit them. Because looking at their stats this year, Tyson Campbell, the outside cornerback for Jacksonville, not a bad player. I think he's a good player, good tackler, good run defender, but through the air, 119.2 passer rating allowed and 3 touchdowns. Yikes. That's not good. Jarrian Jones, who for whatever reason is playing outside cornerback for Jacksonville. He's a slot guy. Don't know why he's playing outside cornerback. 104 passer rating allowed and 1 touchdown. It's not like their secondary has been playing lights out football. Now, there are pieces that have, mainly Jordan Lewis, and their ability to get pressure from the edge and manufacture pressure from linebackers and their secondary helps. But just on a simple true pass set, their secondary's not been great outside of Jordan Lewis. You can expose Campbell. You can expose Jerry Jones. I expect, as it has been through the first 3 games, Pearsall gets, 10 to 8 targets per game, and Christian McCaffrey once again has about 20 touches. This just seems like another CMC big receiving game. I'm not expecting, though, San Francisco to stretch the field. I think Eric Murray's played great football for the Jaguars safety group this year. Again, they're not perfect. They can be beat. 31 points is what Cincinnati put up against them. So they can be beat by bad quarterbacking play. And I think Brock Purdy, minus the half or a quarter that Joe Burrow played, is the best quarterback, and this is the best offense they're going to face all year, or at least through the first 4 games. So this is an assessment game for both teams. For them, are they real? Is beating bad teams, and once they play a good team, like are they good? Are they going to fall apart? And for San Francisco, this is a good defense you're playing. A good front 7. Can you finally get your running game going? I don't expect deep balls downfield. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game. I would expect, 20-23, 17-20. I expect a 3-point margin of victory. It'll be tight, folks. Games are going to be tight. The Jaguars are playing good football through 3 weeks. I think this game is won between the numbers. The advantage, to me, goes towards San Francisco in that area. But it's going to be a slog. Long drives, trading punts, trading field goals. The question really is, which offense can put together, a few drives where they don't turn the ball over, they can score some points, whether it's 1 touchdown, 1 field goal, and kind of squeak out with the win. How does San Francisco's defense adjust without Nick Bosa? How does the offense fare? Purdy's back. Rhythms can be disrupted. How do things work out? This is a big game. You could say this may be a must-win game for San Francisco in the POV of you win this game, you're 4-0. You can kind of afford to lose games against the Rams on a short week and the Buccaneers or the Falcons or the Tech. It gives you some cushion in what will be the hardest part of your schedule the next month and a half or so. So this is a big game. The last note I have for you, though, is the Jaguars defense is allowing the 13th highest third down conversion rate. So by the skin of their teeth, I think San Francisco can win this game. I think San Francisco can pull this game out. It'll be close, though. Don't expect, and look, maybe I'm wrong, and they expose Jacksonville's defense. I don't think that'll be the case. I have to see San Francisco's offense be able to do that, which they haven't been able to at all this year. The offense has put up 26 points at the most. I would expect, playing a better defense this Sunday, they'll probably score 23, 24 points. I think this game will probably be, and I'll pin it here. San Francisco wins 24-19. 1-score game. It'll be close. It really depends on what the Jaguars' offense looks like. Because if they can establish the run, it's going to be a long game. And I think they can force Lawrence to make mistakes. I'm hoping Purdy can not play too much hero ball, play somewhat conservative, and take a play if it's there. But this Jaguars defense has really thrived off of quarterbacks making mistakes. You don't want to do that this Sunday. This Jaguars defense will take advantage of that. And so I think San Francisco wins 24-19. 1-score game again. Defense may be able to save them, but I think the offense has to find a way to score some points. That'll be the difference maker. Long dogfight till the end, a slog of an outing, but I think San Francisco wins. They're at home. They have the rest advantage. They're not traveling from, Florida to San Francisco or Santa Clara. I think San Francisco pulls it out once again. My assumption is Purdy's back, better quarterbacking play. You now have some mobility at quarterback. Now we'll see how his toe is and if that affects him, but this will be Eddie Pinheiro, 2 field goal game. This will be a very close game till the end. The Jaguars are good on special teams, good punter, good kicker. Parker Washington's a pretty good return man out there. So San Francisco's kick return defense has not been great. So hopefully Brant Boyer has those boys finely tuned. But San Francisco, final prediction, wins this one 24-19. That will be the outcome. We've been right, not score-wise, but outcome-wise. We are 3-0 this year. 3 for 3, if you will. Hopefully we can go 4-4-4. Thank you to every one of you in the YouTube chat. Harry Balzac, that's your name. I know why it is. Niner Media, Fish and Chips, Lori Matthews, Kyle Chipto, Tommy Huxley. All you guys are great. Going back to the very top, if I can quickly here, to find people like 49ers Throwback, Garrett Dale, Joseph Ernberg, Rob D., and many, many more. And to answer your question, Harry, yes, tonight, myself, Larry Kruger, Pig and a Pickle Krug Show, and right here on 49ers Access. Don't forget, live right after Seahawks and Cardinals, Thursday Night Football. Come back for that. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave us that 5-star audio podcast review. How do you see this one ending up? Is this a trap game? It could be. There's my heart is saying, Sterling, don't follow me. Follow your brain. Pick the Jaguars. This one is going to be tight. Wow. To the very end. But I think San Francisco pulls it out. What do you think? Tell me down below in the comments. And hopefully you guys can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X, or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.